Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment, gentlemen and ladies and boys and girls, as they say, whoever you are, whatever gender, doesn't matter. Human spirit, welcome to Threads of Enlightenment. I love the introduction part of the show because it gives me an opportunity to welcome our guests because they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive, priceless, if you will. Time. 24 hours has been given to every single one of us. And I want to thank our guests for coming and spending some of this precious stuff, man. I keep telling people that once you understand time, your life will change, your relationship will change, your purpose will change, everything about you will change because you'll see how precious she is. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator, man. I'll tell you why, because it created me and it created the individual before us, Michael. And so we want to thank him and honor him for coming and sharing these precious commodities. And so we bow our spirits to him because we know the journey taught him a couple of things. And so we want to extract that from him. What did they teach him or taught him, if you will? It's housed inside of him some stuff, some ingredients. We want access to it, wisdom, knowledge, insights, all of these things. We want to dance in that. Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you so much, Ken. What a powerful introduction. Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm excited. And I love this concept of honoring and celebrating the individual on the journey and what we've learned. That felt like a different kind of introduction. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. And that is how I feel from the deepest parts of me. And there is one question that I always like to toss, if you will, to my guests as they show up. And because, as I said, I mentioned to you, someone has made a demand on you. And because of that demand being placed on you, I always ask this question for everyone. Because I said to you guys that we have two journeys. The first is to introduce us to us. The second is the servant. And my question to you is this. How do you serve mankind?
A great question. Take a moment here. I serve mankind by sharing what I've learned about waking up to my own truth, to my own power, to my authentic self, so that others can gain a little bit from the light that I share about how to wake up to their own truth, power, and authentic self. You know, I look at my own life so far in kind of two parts. And I know there's more parts to come. And we talked a little bit about this, before we hopped on. But, you know, when we find ourselves, as you said, we gain this assignment. And I believe the assignment is to share what we've learned. And I feel that I know it, for me, it's when life really started getting exciting. It really started happening. It's when I began to understand how to breathe life into myself. And so I'm here to breathe life into others, however that looks.
Yeah, I think that is the assignment for us all, is to begin to expound knowledge and wisdom from our point of view based on the journey that we went through and what we saw. And I believe it is designed, and that's one of the things I love about this whole concept of the journey that we all go through. 3 billion plus people on the earth. And I believe that each and every one of us, as we go through it, we would all come out with a different perspective so that we can share with each other. That to me is the ultimate of all the ultimate, for us to get to a space where we can sit down and, as artists that have gone through and walked on their whiteboard, if you will, of life, and tossed all the colors that we throw on that canvas based on our experience, to watch that artwork from a different space is just absolutely exotic and Yeah, it's just precious to me to just imagine that. One of the customs that we do here, Michael, is to go back, man. I love the going back stories, if you will, because it places us from into the first space that we reside once we hit this planet, and that is the family unit. We have these two individuals that are called mom and dad, and they are damaged, if you will. We're all damaged. That trauma that we've all had in our life, and we see a life and we manage our relationship based from that trauma. And so we have these two individuals that are traumatized, and they are now going to deposit into you information. That information is based on whatever they see the world. And you from that space are now going to start yours. What was your family unit like?
For sure. What a great way then, but to start at the beginning. My family unit, I have to first acknowledge my parents for being outstanding parents in the way that they gave me love. My parents both carry a lot in their lives, as all parents do, as we've said. And they did their best to kind of shield me from some of the negative or heavier parts. And they loved the heck out of me. So I always felt very loved. That being said, there was a lot between them that did not work. And they stayed together for their kids because I think that they feared that if they divorced, then their kids, would not have a great life or be traumatized in some kind of way. And what ended up happening is I think my sister and I ended up absorbing a lot of the energy in that house, a lot of the animosity between them, and kind of picked it up secondhand. My father was a Vietnam War vet. He lost both his parents very young in his life, and a lot of his life he had seen a lot of death and a lot of things not working out. And he taught his son, me, to always keep his back to the wall. That was kind of his famous saying with me. So I kind of picked up this way from him about kind of like always protecting myself, always looking out, maybe walking on eggshells, maybe guarding myself a bit from the world. He was a great man, but I didn't get to learn a whole lot of, I'll be honest, healthy masculinity from him as far as responsibility and integrity and things like that. My mom, again, beautiful, loving woman, and had a really hard upbringing with her mother. So she tried to give her children everything, and showered us with love in such a great way. But from her, I kind of on the flip side of that, I learned like, don't do it wrong. It was like she instilled such good morals on me that often I felt like if I screwed something up, that I was maybe not the best person, or I had to people please a bit or look good, always do the right thing, which is great. It gave me good morals, but also I kind of went a little far on that end of that. And then together, they knew what society knew. My dad based his success based off of money and jobs. And my mom, always wanted me to go to school, pick the right major, and kind of, get into the right career. And that's kind of the path that I started to take. I also have a beautiful, amazing sister. And what is interesting about the two of us, she's 3 years older than me, is she kind of caught a lot of trauma from them, and I was a little bit of the favorite. So she was not so fond of me for much of our early life, but later on we had a beautiful coming together, and now we're best friends. Yeah. So I had this kind of like a lot of love, but at the same time, I picked up a lot of you could call it broken energy from them subconsciously that I figured out later in life.
Yeah, I think they say, Michael, that language, we don't understand language. We have the verbal language. And there's studies out there that says that we don't learn much from that. We have body language. And because we are energy, if you will, to a degree that is stored within this block of skin and bones and so forth. So when you meet someone, a stranger, one of the very first things that you will sense, and we call it sense because of a lack of a better explanation in the English language, we will sense that individual's energy. And we will know in a split second what type of individual we're dealing with. But most of us are programmed to ignore that because it's just there. And so when we as kids are in that family unit, I believe because we are more sensitized, we're more empathetic, we don't have all the blockage of stress and stuff like that, man. I believe we are more sensitive than anything. And we know we just walk around, we can't, or we're not given permission to speak about what we sense and what we know, but we get it, and it begins to sit in and program us regardless of what mom and dad are not doing and so forth. So yeah, we call that the subconscious training that we acquire as we're moving through life. And it manifests in our life. It really does. So here you are, man. You're in this dichotomy of individuals and you are growing, you and your sister. How did that type of school, if you will, began to affect your performance in this fashion, your relationships to others, as well as the relationship to you yourself? How did you feel being in that class, and how did you respond to others from that area?
Yeah. Well, I love what you were saying, speaking into this feeling and picking up energy, beyond verbal communication. I remember a lot in that household. My sister and I used to sit at the top of the stairs and listen to my parents argue downstairs. There was a lot of confrontation energy, and I found that showing up in my life. I've always been a very sensitive person and sensitive to energy, sensitive emotionally and sensitive to others' energy. I feel it, I pick it up very easily. And to this day, I have a little bit of a fear of confrontation that lives within me. I feel my body starts to tremble when somebody thinks negative of me, or let's say they press me in a confronting way, or if they want to call me wrong for something, or if I see like a fight, or I feel there could be like a physical fight on the verge, I literally get weak in my knees. And it's something I'm still working with. I'm like, where does this fear come from? In terms of relationships, I've found a lot of challenges in my life, especially in romantic relationships, because I don't feel my parents had the healthiest of relationships in the way that they treated each other with love and integrity. And so my kind of example of a working relationship wasn't a very healthy one. And I think it has, in some cases, made me like a bit afraid of getting into a committed relationship, and like feeling fear that I might lose myself or lose my purpose. Like it will be too much pressure for me, because I saw it was too much pressure on them. But as well, like, because my parents always showed up for me, because my dad was at every sports game that I ever played, because my mom put me first and just showered me with love and tried to hide some of the negative stuff. They gave me a great heart. They gave me a great heart. And that's how I show up in my life for myself and with others. I always try to be open and see the best in everybody. I consider myself a kind person, a moral person, and it has allowed me to create some incredible relationships. In fact, what's funny, Ken, is I find myself as the glue between many of my friends and other relationships. Whereas, sometimes it's typical for a lot of people to not get along. You see it in our world, especially with all the political and stuff going on. People want to wrong each other for their perspective. I've always been pretty centered and been able to bring people together almost like a peacekeeper. And I see it when I go home to my parents now, when I still see it happening with them. I tend to kind of be the light where both of them can kind of settle and come back to themselves. And I do it kind of without even understanding that I'm doing it. I'm kind of like somehow kind of helping heal that energy there. And it's funny, I'm staying with my parents right now, so it's like I'm getting this full circle experience around that.
Yeah, that's a skill set that not many have, Michael. Again, I believe this. that some of us are gifted, and everyone is gifted in some way. And because we have an assignment, the gifts and the qualities that are necessary for that assignment resides in us. And I'll take an example because I grew up in the church, and one of my I talk about this, about assignment and jobs and stuff like that, and I learned it from reading back then in the Bible, because I see Jesus Christ walking. He's walking on the shore. Got a couple of boys out in the boat doing their job. They're just fishing. They're fishermen, it tells us, and so they're doing nothing wrong. And here's this dude, walking the shores, and he begins to yell at these guys. He said, "Hey guys, come and follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men." And these boys jumped off the boat and went and started following this guy. It tells me a couple of things. They were ready for something. They were probably bored at their job and just probably said in themselves, in their minds, this is as far as I'm going to go in this company, and I'm not sure I want more out of life, and I'll take whatever he says to me. And so they bailed and they left. And as we study history and saw that these guys had some stuff inside of them, because those were a group of people that changed the entire world. So they had something inside of them. And I think part of your gift, the ability to do what you do, and each and every one of us has it, is sitting inside you and resides in you as a young man, a young individual. While you were sitting there hearing the arguments between them, you were contemplating and dancing within yourself. How can you bring harmony? Things like that. And your gifts and those things needs to be stirred up. And it takes a while for it to manifest, but your gifts were being stirred up while you were sitting on that stair, listening to your mom and dad arguing. And now you are the peacemaker amongst them and teaching them how to recognize the individuality of themselves. And it's a beautiful full circle, if you will, as you were stating. So you're moving through life, man. Here's this young man. He's managing his stuff. I know I tell people that one of the first assignments that we do is we manage. We learn how to survive. And you're dealing with your relationships and others, and you're heading into college, because I usually do this pattern, Michael, because I want to follow the program that they have set up. This is the program, man. If you hang out with mom and dad, then you go to high school, then you get your knowledge, you make it out of there, then you go into college, you do your thing in college, then you go get your job. This is the program that we follow. But this guru that I sat under in an ashram, she said something that blew my mind one day. She said, "Let life disturb your comfort." And so after we're following this program, Michael, life always shows up and say, "Hey, I can make you a fisher of men." So we get into a little trouble there. So talk to us as you're moving through your life in the program, as to which field of study did you pick? I know you mentioned that mom seemed to be dictating and guiding you towards doing the right thing for the money. Which field did you pick, and why did you pick it?
Yeah, love this. And I love that analogy you made, with Jesus and these young boys. And even back then, wow, they had jobs that they didn't like, corporations that they get to leave,
Yep.
that they were bored. We're bored here. Like, you had me laughing there. I'm like, wow, it's the same then as it is now. Because it reminds me of my own story. My mom was always like really on me with my grades and to pick a great major to go to college. She's a person who loves degrees, and she considers people experts in the world like you must have a degree. Whereas I've learned later in my life now that that's not necessarily true. I believe our life experience is our degree. So I was always the kid who never knew what he wanted to do when he grew up. And I do have this story in like high school football where I kind of had my dreams crushed, and it was the only thing I ever cared about or had passion about. And once that went, I started to just kind of look for my worthiness in and kind of follow my mom's advice about, all right, like, what's a major that is going to make me happy and make me a lot of money? I ended up picking communications. Because I love to watch Sports Center as a kid. And I said, wouldn't it be cool to be like a sports journalist? I think I've always had this gift of speaking in me, and this is what I'm bringing out now in my life, but I didn't know it back then. So I thought it'd be cool to be on the cameras and to be some kind of a speaker and to be like talking about, cool shows and sports. And so I went to University of Delaware, but the thing is you had to be a communication interest major, meaning that in your first 2 years, you're still applying for that major. And by sophomore year, you find out if you make it in or not. And I didn't make it in. So I'm sitting here saying, well, here I am in college. What am I going to do with the rest of my time? And my thought was, what's the easiest thing I could pick to just graduate in 4 years to say that I was successful at college? And I picked English. No understanding why. I was actually always pretty terrible at spelling and grammar, and I wasn't a big reader, but I picked English. Shot in the dark. And anyway, I graduated. I got out of school, and I said, what am I going to do with my life? I have no idea. I tried to follow this path of degrees and majors, but really my biggest takeaway was the social experiment of college. I loved hanging out with friends, partying, and getting to live on my own. That was the beauty that college had given me, my independence, you could say, in the world. And so after college, I took another shot in the dark. It was just all these random guesses. I had a friend that was going out to LA he wanted to be an agent, a Hollywood agent for actors and for writers. And I thought, oh, how cool. He gave me this book to read. And again, like, I was interested in the sports broadcast journalism. Now I was like, well, maybe I could be an actor. That sounds really fun. So maybe I'll follow him out there and I'll work around the talent, and eventually I could become the talent. So I went and did that for a couple of years, and I was an assistant to agents, and absolutely burned out, crashed. That's a whole story in its own. Very, very high pressure environment. And I got out of that. And then I got into sales from there. And you can stop me at any time. I don't know. I see that we're going in kind of chronological order of our lives. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, still not knowing what I wanted to do after that. I went into sales because I said, what's something I could go into where I don't need this particular specific major or degree to qualify me for? And my father had always been in sales too. So naturally, his son went into sales because I said, I can make a lot of money. Maybe I'll find success and happiness there. I didn't find it in LA. I didn't find it in college. I still felt very lost and directionless in my life. And so I entered what would be about an 11-year sales career from there. And that was about 11 years of burning out, of stress, of depression at different points in my life, and of constant striving. Sales is a very performance-based industry,
Yeah.
and I never felt I was good at it or I could even make enough money there. And so my life was very dark during that time. There was this overall theme that I always felt. I'm like, man, I know that I have potential. Like, I know I got this fire within me, this flame for life. I see it when I'm around people. I see it, friends come to me for advice. I'm charismatic. Like, there must be some place where I could plug into, where I could find some passion and make money at it as well. And it just never came. And I always started to find out what purpose was. And this search for purpose became the driving force in my life, because every rock I had looked under for it, I just couldn't find it. And I hoped that one day purpose would come and pull me out of this sales career. And it just never did, until eventually I'll wrap it up here. That's where the next chapter began, is where I really needed to understand that I was the only one who was going to come save me, who was going to move me forward, who had to take the big leap. Nobody was going to do it for me. But every environment that I was in up until that time felt like a mismatch, and I couldn't understand why.
Yeah, that's usually the key. That purpose makes us purposeful. I tell people, until we're there, I said, I used to tell people, they say, what are you doing, Ken? I said, well, I'm squatting, man. I'm squatting until I find my purpose. And people used to look at me and thought I was off the chain with that. But uh, I love your life trajectory of how you're talking about it, because many of us were like that. We were just drifting along and finding ourselves in places, and I can testify to that. I ended up in sales and stuff like that, and dancing all over. And you and I both know the degree of depression that can come in a life like that, because you're only as good as your last month when it comes to sales and stuff like that. You could be really, really great, and everyone's patting you on your back. But next month, if you are under that, they want to know what's wrong with you, and that you need help, and all of these different things. And so you're on this seesaw of emotions and performance, and it can do something to you. And only the strong, I tell people, come out of there, because it really is something that individual can use to abuse themselves. I tell people to be very careful of what you say, because you are listening. And I remember back then, Michael, I would say some harsh things to me. You're a failure, you're no good, all of those things that we say. And eventually we started believing some of them, and we started acting and producing the outcome that the mindset of an individual there will bring and produce, that our life represents what we look like. And so Michael said something, and I always invite our audience to learn to transition from from listening to becoming a hearer. A hearer will respond to the stuff, the knowledge, the wisdom that is being tossed or leveled at them. They would look at it and they begin to open. A listener is not paying attention. So I invite you guys to switch over into hearing what Michael was talking about, because it's some powerful stuff. So when you decided and recognized, Michael, that no one is coming, it's you and I that have to step up, if you will. And that is a sobering place to be, because we recognize that all the excuses, all of it is us. We have to be that one to stand and begin to take the step. You realize, Michael, that wait a minute, my purpose is not going to jump on me and stuff like that. I need to start doing something. What was that something that you said that you needed to start doing, and you began to do it?
Yeah. Great question. And I love, Ken, what you just said about be careful what you say, because we are always listening. That's the first time I've heard someone phrase it like that. I know we're powerful creators and we create a reality with our words, but yes, but of course, like you just gave me an aha moment about, but of course, our cells are always listening, our subconscious. And I did this my whole sales career. I put so much pressure on myself for not being good enough. I beat myself up so much. Any amount of money I made was never enough. And yes, this environment always reinforced maybe what I learned as a kid from parents or from mom, that like when you do well, you get the gold star, right? But when you don't do well, you're in trouble. And sales just reinforced that as a young man. So it kept bringing up these emotions of unworthiness and wrongdoing. And I started to realize in sales that they kept throwing this kind of one size fits all model at me, like do it this way and you will be successful. And I started to understand that it was the environment that I didn't want to be in anymore. And I didn't want to get promoted. I didn't want to be a manager. I didn't want a higher position in the same environment that I was already unhappy in. So I kept trying to look at like what different professions I could do, but I didn't think that I had the credentials or degrees from college to do anything else. I'm like, what would I jump into? They wouldn't hire me. I don't have the experience. So I felt very trapped. Now, what changed the game for me is something that began to unfold over time. And this is what I would call my spiritual awakening to the truth of who I am and the truth that God does exist, that creative source energy exists, and I'm not alone here in all this. I took this trip to India in 2016. I had this wild experience, man. It was on my 3rd-year anniversary with this company, and I was having the worst day. And I went into this appointment, and I was sitting in it was with a restaurant owner. I was selling some rental services, hygiene products and stuff like that to restaurants. And she wasn't paying attention to me when I came in. She was just like with other contractors. I was pissed off. I was like, she's not giving me the time of day. When we finally sat down and had the appointment, I was also upset because I was supposed to go on a trip to Thailand with a friend. And this friend disappeared on me, never called me back. One of my best friends in the world, still haven't heard from him to this day. It was mind boggling. And when her and I got into this conversation, it was an Indian restaurant. And the conversation switched from selling to she was telling me about this pilgrimage that she took in India. And I was like on the edge of my seat, leaning in, eyes wide open. I was like, this sounds amazing. And it was this hike. They went up this very sacred mountain. And she said, but you only go there if you're called. And I felt like this energy hook into my body that overcame me. It was like warm. It was tingling. It was almost like I had been pulled into like this, like a little room with her. It was hard to explain. And I said, how do you know if you're called to go there? And she goes, yeah, the vortex. Exactly. I said, how do you know if you're called to go there? And she goes, you already have been. And I had chills just come over my body. I was like, what? And this moment in hindsight taught me something. I said, look how fast I switched from caring about selling to this passion awakening in me, this igniting of my soul to like, wow, I want to travel and go on pilgrimages like that. And so a month and a half later, I went to India for 10 days because that's all I could get off from work at the time, with a backpack and no hotel reservation. You know, this friend who disappeared on me ended up being a blessing because it let me go on my first kind of spiritual journey. And I had this wild adventure there. But from that moment, when I came back, I noticed that stuff just started showing up on my path. New friends in my life, transformational trainings came into my life, different modalities, energy work, Reiki, spiritual teachers, plant medicine, all these things to open my mind. And for me, I followed it like a breadcrumb trail. And my guiding light was my excitement and my interest. And if something really piqued my interest or spoke to me and I couldn't understand why, maybe you couldn't make money with it, or it wasn't like just about the job, but like it spoke to my heart. It got me excited. I would just say yes. And it started to just take me down this path that opened and began healing me. For years, couple years, I was just this emotional mess, just crying and purging all of these old energies, stuck energies that weren't serving me. Like I had some teachers that were kind of helping me purge these energies. And I noticed that every time I did some inner work, or I did some personal development stuff, or I cleared some energy, I felt lighter inside after. I felt a little happier inside after. And then something else would come and find me in my life that would light me up and make me excited. And so what happened is, gradually over years, these practices on the side, call them spiritual practices, that began to awaken my spirit and speak to me, started to just take over the work aspect. And I started to pay less attention to the job. And eventually, I actually worked less. I cared less, but I was showing up more of myself to my appointments. And I noticed that actually deals and sales just started falling in my lap. And by the time I left my job in 2019, 2020, actually, I was the #1 sales rep on my team. And I could not achieve that prior to that, banging my head against the wall, trying like hell to make it happen. And I'm like, yo, what was it? Like, what was it? And I said, the more I work on myself, the more I go inward to discover who I am and to heal the aspects of me that are out of balance. You know, the happier my life gets, the lighter I get, and the more things are just coming to me without even trying. And so I noticed that the sales was just a boiling pot of pressure over the years. And I was like, I don't want any more pressure. This ain't doing anything for me. And it brought me to this point in 2019 where I went on a trip swimming with wild dolphins in the Bahamas. And dolphins are my favorite animal. And I had this moment that I would call a moment of divine intervention, where after having dozens of dolphins swimming around me in the middle of the ocean, eye to eye, it did something to me. It changed something within me. It shifted in energy, and I came back to the shore, and I broke into tears. And I'm looking out at the horizon, and I looked to my friend next to me, and I told her, I said, Lisa, I said, I'm done. I'm not going back to corporate. I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I'm so moved by this beauty that I want to see the world. That India trip planted the travel bug in me. There's a yearning inside of me to see this world, and I always thought I had to have $1 million to go see the world. I'm like, how am I going to go see the world if I can't get more than 10 days off from work? And ultimately, what I decided is I had this retirement fund, this 401k that was building that you're not supposed to touch till you're 65. And I took the greatest leap of faith in my life. And I said, Mike, life is now. I said, that money's there if you want to go pursue your dream. And so I took it out, and my train of thought was like, this was my idea. I said, I understand the law of vibration. I understand that the higher that I vibrate, the more I can clear out some of these denser emotions and heal them and get into a higher vibe of higher emotions of joy, of gratitude, things like that. And that my life gets attracted to me in that way. I said, what if I go put myself in the most high vibe environment that I can imagine, where I'm truly enjoying traveling because it's the one thing I want to do most. I said, then I feel like my purpose has to be attracted to me in that. And that's where I wrote a letter to God. And I said, listen, I'm in your hands. I'm putting it all on the line. I'm going to sell everything I have. Guide me through this adventure into the world. Please bring me all the resources, people, places, like anything I need. Turn me inside out. Show me what I need to know about myself. And on the other side, guide me into my life's calling. That was my prayer. And off I went.
Beautiful prayer. Beautiful stuff Michael had talked about. And I didn't want to interrupt because the secrets of life and happiness and joy and all that stuff was released to us in that story, in that conversation that he was telling us about. And again, as I said, Michael, I do try to educate my audience in many ways because I've been open to certain things. I welcome them as listeners. And that's how we all start the journey. And I learned that there is another individual within the individual of ourselves that is there that needs to hear, because he needs to hear, because Jesus makes a statement, those who have ears, let them hear. So that tells me that some other part of me needs to be paying attention, but is also a responsibility on the hearer to be hearing. And I began to investigate and find out, who is that? Send me on a journey. Religion calls him the soul of the man. Psychologists will say the subconscious being, the who, the you, the individual. And that's the one, Michael, that listens when you talk. And I love how you express yourself, and you have this life of surrendering. I tell people that is the key to this whole thing, is learning how to surrender. We first become the observer. When we become the observer, we have begun. And as you look into your life as a salesperson, I remember there, and I remember that wasn't it. But as you begin to work on you, all the other things will come into place. And we are bad at salespeople because we are a mess. And I want to say that again. We're horrible salespeople because we're a mess. Start focusing on you. And as Michael talked about, I started to do the same thing. Start focusing on you and watch your performance change, because remember, the other individual is an individual as well. And so you're trying to sell them things. But when you connect to the individual, they'll buy those things. They're telling you and I to sell the things, but no, that's not the way you do it. You connect to the individual and they'll buy it. They'll look at you and go, man, what is it you're selling again? And they'll buy the thing because they have connected. when he connected with that individual and she offered him a similar conversation that Jesus offers disciples, fishers of men, we are programmed to believe in the job. The job will never allow you to get to your freedom because they keep you in darkness because you are that battery that keeps them alive. You need to become your adventurer. As Michael began to step out, travel, I always tell an individual, travel, get out of your comfort zone, get out, put a backpack, get out. It's a lie that you need $1 million to travel. You don't. You don't. There are books, thousands and millions of books of individuals who left without a dime, and they were able to change themselves and change millions of people after that. So don't buy into that lie. It's a lie. Michael took off. He afforded himself the opportunity to experience outside of his comfort. What does it do? It opens you up. It makes you empathetic. It takes you into some fantastic journey, man, that will blow your mind. And when your mind is blown, your life will change. And so here he is. Michael, here you are. You went to India. India, one of the ancient lands and beliefs on the planet, where you are exposed to so much. Let life disturb your comfort. You're coming from Western civilization and you're walking into that civilization that has very few comfort, if you will. You have to make some adjustment. How did you make that transition? Even though you were excited and she said this, you have the natural shock and awe that you're going to go through, even though she said you were there and all those different things because of your different programs. How did you manage yourself with this newness of location and newness of mindset?
Yeah. I'm laughing because, I'm reminiscing. You're having me recall these memories as I talk about this. And it was one of the most turbulent days. I had some of the most turbulent days of my life there that I did not see coming. My mindset going into India, because I wanted to explore spirituality, was like, I'm going to go there and meditate. I'm probably going to sit like on a mountain and I'm going to be in such peace and bliss. And I'm going to find myself and maybe go to like an ashram. I'm going to come back like a new man. I'll probably find my purpose. I go to India. As soon as I get in the airport, I got this guy looking at me as I'm like going through my money and he's giving me kind of the evil eyes. I walk out of the airport and there's cows everywhere in the middle of the street. And I was just like, talk about that mind being blown, culture shock. It was like, boom, like something hit me in my body. I was like, where am I? And so that first day was maybe the wildest day of my life. I felt like I was playing survival the whole day. Such a shock. I got in this taxi. I said, uh-oh, I didn't book a hotel or I have no plan. I don't even know where I'm going. I said, take me to a hotel. He takes me down to this corner that for me, coming from the US looked like one of the poorest neighborhoods I'd ever seen. It was like in the slums, right? There's people sitting outside, like wearing nothing. And I'm like, I can't stay here. Don't take me here. You need to take me somewhere else. So now I'm already now on like in fight or flight, like full on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, take me to the train station. Because the place that this restaurant owner told me about was called Mount Jammu, which was in the northwest corner on like the border of Pakistan. I said, take me to the train station. I'll try to get a train up there. I didn't even know where it was. I get to the train track, they drop me off and I can't read anything. There's no English. It's not a train station. There's just like a little hut with a track.
Yeah.
And people are pushing me around. I don't know what train to look for. There's no names. There's no signs. For the first time in my life, I'm not going to swear on your show, Ken, but I had you know what moment. I was like, I'm really screwed. I was fearful. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get out of this day alive. And it was all the taxi drivers start coming at me trying to, get me in their taxi. And one guy just felt nicer than the other. So I took him up and he spoke a little English. I got in his taxi. I said, listen, man, like, I don't know where I am. I kind of dove into this a little fast. I want to go to Mount Jammu. He goes, no, don't go there. He goes, you got to get on this train, and it's a very dangerous ride, and it's going to take you like a whole day or 2 days on the train overnight to get there. And he's like, I really wouldn't recommend it. And so what happened was there was another girl I was following on Instagram, and I heard about this place called Rishikesh, and it looked beautiful. I was like, okay, take me there. Man, this guy took me through all different bus stations. It was like a whole adventure to get to he puts me on this bus. I give him like half the money I have. I'm so grateful. I get on his bus, broken down windows. Like, you've been to India. It's the loudest place in the world as far as traffic goes. It's like horns and sirens. Everything is like stimulating your senses beyond anything I'd known. I took a 7-hour bus ride that was like crawling, people getting on the bus, yelling and praying and singing, and kids. Like, I was in a corner huddled up, like fearing for my life. This bus drops me in the middle of nowhere at midnight. I'm the last one to get off the bus. He's like, here's Rishikesh, gets off and leaves me. No street signs, no street lights. It's dark, it's midnight, and I'm the only one. I have no idea where to go. And I'm like, oh my God, like, God, I hope you're with me right now. And I just start walking, and like around the corner, there's this one hotel with like a light. It's like,
Yeah.
like a sanctuary. I go in, no one's staying there. It's just like this owner and his 2 sons. And I had a place to sleep, and I got in. I remember I made a video at like 1 a.m, and I was like, this has been the scariest day of my whole life. And the next morning, like, these pictures didn't look like this girl's Instagram. And I sent this person a message who had 10,000 followers who I never talked to. She actually responded to me, and she's like, oh, you gotta get in a rickshaw. You gotta go around the mountain, and like, you'll find it. So I eventually got there, and then my journey was just this constant up and down emotional roller coaster ride. I was sitting by the Ganges River, just like crying, like all my pain around love and stuff was emerging and coming out. I was like, I felt alone. I was like, what is this? I thought I was coming here to meditate, Like, the trip all in all forced, it brought out my survival skills, but it called forth my fortitude to deal with the adversity, to keep going. And it started to anchor in faith, because I only had this idea that at this time that like I had a relationship with God. I was still early on with that. And I looked at the taxi driver as an angel who saved me. I looked at the man and his sons in the, as like a sanctuary and a beautiful, more guides and angels that took me in. And I saw this theme throughout the trip of being taken care of and knowing that I was all right, no matter how it seemed. And it's that trip that prepared me several years later to travel the world.
Yeah, I tell people faith is not faith until it's tested. Until then, it's an opinion. Everyone has opinions. People pissing out their opinions all day long. But faith is something different. It is a part of you. And it only manifests and becomes a part of you after it's been tested. And then it drops into your belief system and you own it. It's part of you forever. And so when you begin to embark on the second phase and all the other journeys, you have believed. You have believed. And so because you have believed, why? What did you believe? You believe that there is a God, there is someone looking at you, someone that is walking with you, introducing you to, as you mentioned, some of the angels that are here, some of those other things that the self begins to witness, the loneliness, the shedding, the joy, the pain, all of it as you are going through. But when you are going through all of that, Michael, at the end of it, you come out believing, man. It's amazing what transition becomes a part of your life. I love your first day. That alone can be a whole movie. Your first day in India. Probably title it The First Day in India as a movie, and it'll be exhausting when people start looking at it, and terrifying at the same time, and yet rewarding in some cases. And so that's the walk, and it allows you to be terrified, and it allows you to be joyful, and all of it, that dichotomy of life. And we welcome you guys on the journey, man. Step out and take the chance. Become fishers of men. Don't settle, man. Don't settle with you're at. And you know who you are. You are going to bed and your mind is all over the place. You know who you are. We've all been there. Michael will tell you. You know who you are. You know the restlessness that are inside of you. You know why that restlessness is there? Because you're not where you're supposed to be. And so, you know who you are. You just need to go in and begin to ask the question, what is it do you want me to do? Help me to see it. Give me the wisdom. Give me the eyes. Make things aware. Make me aware of things, and you will become aware of things. So but you know who you are. And so I want to encourage you guys to start your journey. Here you are, man. I love your day. That is just a beautiful day. I don't know what to say after that. That's just priceless.
What a gift, right?
So as you began to move through and you started that journey, and as you began to walk through all these different types of journey, and you see that you have been being stripped apart and expanded, if you will. What tools did you bring into your life, Michael? Because those are traumatic things that are happening to you. And you got to learn how to manage yourself now. Because I know for me, it was meditation was one of the tools that I brought into my space. You mentioned so many different modalities that you started to be a part of within the spiritual realm and walking in that spiritual arena. What were some of those that you brought into your space to assist you to begin to learn how to ground, learn how to expand?
Yeah, I really believe it gets to be a full holistic approach when you're changing from within, because everything changes. Your physical body, your energy, your spirit, your mind. And with this process, there's a lot of purging that happens, and you feel everything that's coming out of you as you're purging, and it can cause a lot of chaos. And eventually clarity is found from the chaos. But while you're going through it,
Yes.
I felt like I was dying. I really felt like I was dying. I was like, what is happening to me? Like I'm losing my mind. In the long run, I found you got to lose your mind to kind of find your mind. Same thing with the self. And so within the holistic approach, I found I needed things to ground my physical body. I needed things to help my mind understand what was happening to my mind. And I needed also activities to feed my spirit. So for me, meditation and breath work became my two go-tos for the physical. Well, it's for the physical body, for the energy and the mind. But I was meditating every single day, at least 20 minutes, sometimes twice a day for 20 minutes. But I also, for me, like keeping my peace is one of my highest priorities, my highest values. So I created a little meditation room in my house, and I made it beautiful with bamboo all around the walls and very special things that were a part of me and gifts I had received from people. And for me, I feel like our environment is a reflection of who we are on the inside, and especially always being in this pressurized sales environment. I needed somewhere I could go and sit to connect with myself and to have items in that room that were special to me that I could focus on, that would help me tap back into that specialness within me, and that joy. And so I would go sit in this room and look at these items. I would meditate there. I would just lay on the carpet and do breath work. The breath really opens up the nervous system, and there's plenty of breath works on YouTube. I just found some. I also found a teacher and started going to a class once a week. I'll also say that when you start taking on these tools, they lead you down a beautiful path of meeting other individuals who are like-minded and have that in common. And it's very important to have support on this journey and to have
Mm-hmm.
people who understand you. So simply the people that I called into my life felt like I had a team in this world who were rooting me on, who were encouraging me, and who understood me, because most of the people in my job didn't. So there's a great quote that I love from Rumi, what you seek is seeking you. So the more I started to seek these grounding practices, these spirit opening practices, I gained community in my life to make me feel like I got this and I'm not going about it alone. with that came transformational work. I entered this training called the gratitude trainings, which was a version of some transformational training programs that started in the 70s, where you go in and you have a trainer in the front of the room, and you're sitting there for like 3, 4, 5 days, and there's different levels. I went into did it for months as well, but it has you look at the way that you're doing life and question your belief systems. And it's meant to provoke those belief systems and push your buttons inside, so you could kind of see what's holding you back and getting in your way. And so this gave me a perspective on my life, and kind of where I wanted to go towards, and what kind of beliefs I wanted to bring in. That really helped me with the mind piece and eating healthy. I was eating horribly, man. It was always pizza and burgers and stuff, and sugar and over caffeine. And look, I'm still not perfect with these things, but the lighter and cleaner you eat, the lighter and cleaner the body is, which helps your nervous system settle and helps this whole transition be possible. Because to connect to spirit, a calm nervous system and a light body is best. It doesn't mean that you can't do it, but it will be more of an uphill battle and a struggle to kind of try to connect, unless you're really treating your body more as like a temple. You really want to be able to set the environment within your body for your energy and your spirit to connect to who you truly are. So it became kind of like a complete, overhaul. The final thing I'll say on that is play. I realized that the dolphins taught me this later in life, but like, play is so important to connect to my inner child and my essence. And because I put so much pressure on myself through my life and through sales, I understood that I needed to loosen up on myself. I needed to stop putting the pressure on myself and start enjoying life again. So like, man, just going to play basketball, going to hang with these like-minded individuals, like putting on music, dancing. I love to dance. I'm a big dancer. Dancing helps me move the energy within my body when I'm stuck in the mind. So I started to realize that often my mind would just keep bringing me in more loops the harder I tried to figure things out in my mind. But when I danced, it brought me into my body. And when you are in your body, you naturally connect to the energies that are around you without trying. You connect to your true essence without trying. And that's where these feelings of just knowingness come from. Or, we're typically like in our highest moments of joy when we're not thinking about it. So I was always saying, like, what will get me out of the mind and into the body? So yeah, I made sure that play was a staple in my day every day. Like, play at least a few minutes, even if it's just dancing around the kitchen while making some food. And this is sometimes a controversial topic, but I got led down the path of plant medicine. And what I mean by that is psychedelic mushrooms, ayahuasca. I went to Peru and spent some time in Peru working with these plants. And these are very profound master teacher plants that really provide a true mirror within you. And you have to do the work when you commune with them, but they also work a lot on balancing the energies within you and your nervous system. I remember I came back after a 10-day retreat to the jungle with ayahuasca in 2018. I came back to work the next day, and they were doing like you get a discount on your insurance if you like do blood work there, right at the office. And I was on blood pressure medication like for several years before this trip. I came off this trip. I went in, my blood pressure was normal. I never went back on medication again.
Yeah, so much was said there, so much. Plant medicine, and I tell people, when you're doing that, seek the right people. You'll know within your spirit if there's a disturbance there. Don't. We used to tell my kids, if it feels wrong, it is wrong. Don't try to talk yourself out of it. If it feels wrong within you, it is wrong for you. Find that thing that is right for you. I tell people the plant medicine is the express elevator that you take to get to where you need to, but you need to come ready, come expecting. You have to have a part in that. Don't you have to learn how to put aside those dark feelings and emotions and learn to surrender it. And you will get to where you want to, and you'll get enlightened in the sense where you'll get awareness of who you are faster because all the other distractions are gone, and you're able to arrive to that floor high quicker than you would if you had to take the stairs. Basically, I tell people it's taking the stairs versus the elevator, and so you have to learn how to incorporate. But it is a vital part when one's when you're seeking help and so forth. I have a good friend of mine who his company does a lot of experimental things and helping people, but his vision was to make sure that nurses and physicians are there to create that safe space so that that individual can experience the best thing for their life. So
Yeah.
here you are. I mean, there's so many things said. Self-love includes eating right. It includes dancing and releasing so much stuff that way. Meditation, breath work. Breath work, I tell people, it teaches you to, it's the bridge between the supernatural and the natural world. Breath work will take you there. And along with meditation, those are some of the two of the most powerful things out there that can teach you about you, allow you to navigate through your thoughts, to pick and choose, because at that space of breath work and meditation, you're creating. You are in the essence of your power. You will create once you've made a decision about which thought you will give permission to manifest. And once you give that thought manifestation permission, you would be astonished how people are drawn into your life to bring to pass what you have just said that you want to make a reality. Why? Because you are energy when you're meditating and in breath work. You are in your power. And when you release your power through your words and your expression of what you want, it draws those people into your space to accomplish what you just said that you want to accomplish. That's how easy it is, but that's how hard it is. So as you are moving through and you're now walking into the space of becoming a servant and putting together your prop that you have through all the knowledge and everything that you've gained, when you put your stamp, meaning your identity, you. How did that come about, Michael? And tell us that we talked about it early when you had an opportunity to sit down with someone and you assisted them in that journey of shifting their perspective into that new perspective where they found themselves, if you will, or got a light as to who they are once they have made that switch.
Yeah. Well, I wrote this letter to God, like I said, to bring me through my travel journey, which I thought was going to be 2 years. And that's just a random number that I threw at it. It ended up being 4 years long, traveling all around the world, experiencing all different cultures, people, the whole nine, transforming me inside and out. And along the way, when I was out there, the work never stopped, and my question was always, what am I going to do with all this? I know I want to give it back somehow, but a lot of my journey, I still felt like I wasn't sure how. But I started to piece together, all right, what have I done? What have I learned about myself? And journaling is really a great practice for this. And I was also very interested. I always loved making videos. My intention in going out traveling, I said, I'll be a YouTuber, I'll make videos, I'll monetize it. And then ended up being more of a hobby, but speaking allowed me to integrate what I was learning. I feel that when we share what we're learning and what we know, the more that we can speak it, share it, teach it, it's really for us, and it integrates that information back within us so that we learn it better. So my messages started to kind of get more in sync with what I knew about myself. They were showing me what I had learned about myself. And I saw that my overall message that I thought I could deliver back to the world was, I'm a guy who went down a path that was given to him, which we're really all given a path. You know, when we're born, we're not sitting there as enlightened beings who get to choose our way. We inherit what's given. Inherit, I can't say that word right. Inherit what's given to us through our parents, through our peers, through our schooling, through our religions, through all of that. So I saw that it was a lot of unlearning that I had to do first, and healing. And then I could share the message with people that you are not doomed like you might think you are to the limitations of what you might believe that life is. And that there is this deeper truth of the soul, of the superconsciousness, of the higher self, whatever you want to call it, that's knocking inside, asking you to go on a journey. Whatever your journey is, you know, it doesn't mean go travel like I did. It just means, you know, follow, like you said, go within and ask for that awareness and that clarity, and it will come. So I started coaching people along the way, and I understood that everybody has their own wisdom. Everybody has their very own unique roadmap within that starts to reveal itself to the individual as they answer that call within. And I said, this is really what I want to help people do. You know, I lived my earlier life in a lot of systems, you know, where I was told, do it this way, you'll be happy, you'll be successful. So I was tired of feeling like I was being put into boxes. My soul knew was just limiting me, and I knew that there was just much more possibility out there. So I wanted to help people find that possibility and find the belief systems to match, but not do it in the way that I did it. I wanted to kind of assist them and hold space for them to find those revelations, those shifts in perspectives, as we've talked about, for themselves, so that they could go on their own hero's journey and connect with themselves, and then live their life from that place and experience the excitement and the awe and really the meaningful life in that way. So I was like, how will I do this though? Man, it was like 3.5 years, almost 4. And I started to say, I still got more questions than answers. Like, I thought I'd have this thing figured out by now. Like, God, what's going on, man? I thought I'd have my purpose. And what happened at that time is storytelling was dropped into my life. And this is how I know it was so true for me. I never saw it coming. I was coming back from Bali. I was going back to Peru because I had been living there for a while. And I knew I wanted to speak, but I didn't know how to start speaking. I said, I want to start sharing my story and inspire others. So my friend who was living back in Peru, she was working at this little cafe and doing the scheduling there. And she said, Mike, we want to create a storytelling event here where the community could come in and share their stories, almost like a little TED Talks, and get up on a microphone, open mic style, share a story, share a lesson. She said, I know you want to speak. Do you want to come host it? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I went and I started hosting these stand-up storytelling nights. And it gave me an opportunity to get on stage and to practice sharing my story. I got to practice being an MC, and it was more of that alignment of excitement that came in. I said, wow, this is fun. I could do this all day. And I'm calling people up and helping create the space for them to share their stories. And people were having all kinds of breakthroughs because a lot of us carry a lot of trapped energy, you know, in our stories. And every time you speak your story, you find out more about who you are. You move that energy. Every time you tell it a little bit different. And I saw that, you know, we're all just a living, breathing story. Even the story that we're choosing right now, are we choosing to continue to be the story from our past, or are we recreating ourselves in the moment as the new story that we want to be? So I started creating little workshops on this. And then one day, and like, I didn't go looking for this stuff. So it was more a confirmation of faith that something was guiding me. One day my friend says, hey man, I know you like this storytelling stuff. He tosses me this little video on Instagram of this guy, Nick Santanastasso. Guy has no legs and one arm, and he's a world-renowned speaker. He speaks on stage with Tony Robbins and whatnot. And Nick was doing a 5-day free challenge called Unleash Your Story. And I said, oh, there's a breadcrumb trail, Mike. God's telling you, follow the storytelling. What do you do when you speak? You tell your story. Anyway, that brought me back to the US to do some training with him. And it's where I find myself now. Is now I'm speaking, I'm seeking stages and also creating events for people to help understand their stories better, transform their stories, find their own wisdom within their stories. And through my personal coaching, it's more powerful question asking, to people, to have them find their own answers and uncover their own wisdom. And I provide a lot of encouragement along the way because I know it's possible. So for me, it's like inspiring through my own story, helping people share their own, helping people uncover their gifts. And it's still evolving. It's still evolving. It led me right here to this moment, but it's coming into bloom.
Man, you're doing as you're telling your story, and that's all it is for each one of us. We are telling our story, and we know that. Again, I grew up in the church, Michael. And I remember this young man named Jesus. He used to tell those people a lot of stories. They call them parables, and how is it in those stories? There's some great wisdom and insights that. And that's how we relate as human beings. When we hear the story, we are right and left brain thinkers. Those stories have a lot of facts in there, but they also have imageries that people can imagine. And so the group that is hearing the story, where both the right brain and the left brain thinker can get what they need from it. And those that like the facts, they're there. Those are like those use their imagination to imagine things. All of that is in there for them. And so you're in a noble arena. There was this gentleman, as I mentioned, that did that. And he and a group of guys changed the world. So you're in good company, man. And so all of you guys that have been listening to us, man, and hearing Michael's journey, we're going to provide everything for you guys to get into his links. We want you to get there because there's something there for you. Many of you are, like he said, just working in doing your job and struggling in sales. Get to him. He will teach you how to become a better salesperson by becoming a better you. Get to him for those that are just not sure what to do. He talked about that. All of these things embodied within this gentleman. We're going to provide his links because it is important that you get in touch with him, learn from him, and change your world. Michael, thank you so much, man, for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you, Ken, man. It's been a pleasure and a lot of fun to be here with you. Thank you for all the listeners who stuck around. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.